Hello folks, Everchanger here, and welcome back to more Okami. Last time, we boarded the Ark of Yamato without our good friend Isun. We defeated all of the enemies to be found inside this evil Ark, except for one. This time on Okami, we will be confronting the Emperor of Everlasting Darkness. Before we begin things, I just want to say, I really hope you've enjoyed this adventure as much as I have, and I'm really going to be sad to see it come to an end. And also, I do need to point out, I will not be commentating some of the final scenes of the game, simply because, in my personal opinion, some of these last scenes are among the most powerful in any video game I have ever played, and I feel like I wouldn't be able to do it justice by commentating over it. I feel like the best way to enjoy these scenes, especially if it's the first time that you're seeing them, is to see them as is, as the creator intended. Anyway, there's nothing left to say. We're going in. Okami Amaterasu. Just being able to see you with my own eyes, I can't tell you how much joy it brings me. It pains me that I can't remain with you until the end. But I know that you won't let us down. Now I must join the others, but I'll never forget you and how we used to play in the fields in our homeland. I pray that you will always shine bright, Amaterasu. There you are, Amaterasu. I thought I could handle this before you arrived, but it seems I have met my match. This brings back memories, ma chérie. Remember when we faced Orochi together on the celestial plane? Behold, it is shrouded in darkness, but make no mistake. This is none other than Yami, the evil ruler of darkness. It was he who slew the Celestials on board this very ark, and brought misfortune upon the land of mortals. Of course, it's too dark to see his true form now. And so it begins. The dreaded day of darkness is upon us. Distorted time and space brings about this phenomenon. This ill-fated day only occurs once every 100 years. Nobody, not even the gods, has the power to stop it. still, I shall stand firm and fight this battle. For it was I who brought the Ark of Yamato to the celestial plane, but I was oblivious to the evil that lurked in its depths. I caused the death of countless innocent celestials, and brought a curse upon the land of mortals. However, I cannot reset my actions, nor undo the past. Amaterasu, Orochi can only be defeated with the power of the Chosen One. That's what I told you, and you waited for me without question. You waited patiently in this land of mortals. You waited for the day that Nagi, the Chosen One, was born. You believed in me despite knowing that I count myself among the ranks of the accursed Moon Tribe who had escaped from the lunar realm. I was deeply moved by your earnest spirit. That is why my faith in you has not waned since that fateful day, when we engaged Orochi in battle side by side. Amaterasu, you must return to the celestial plane. You must do so in order to bring peace to this world. By the powers of the Day of Darkness, we have none of our powers. All of them have been taken over by Yami. All we may do is use our amazing powers of Wolf Kung Fu in order to attempt to get them back. All the answers are now out in the open about the Moon Tribe, about Wakka, about everything that has happened to this world. But it is all immaterial now. We stand against Yami, the Lord of Darkness, and we need to get our powers back. As you can probably see, Yami has a very, very simple design, and a lot of the design choices about this enemy are never really explained in earnest. Although it is pretty obvious from the appearance of this enemy that it seems to have been designed by the Moon Tribe, which is very interesting indeed. And I just fell, of course, because naturally. As you can see, Yami's simple design really doesn't lend much credence as to what it is based on in terms of mythology, but I feel like it's pretty clear that Yami is simply based upon very, very basic forms of evil. This one, as it is destroying the battlefield, seems to be based upon destruction in its most basic form. Anyway, once you have wailed on him long enough, I recommend you get on it quicker than I did. I just had a lot of stuff to say. He will surrender our first power, Rejuvenation, granted to us by the god Yomigami. With this power, we may now repair the battlefield, which is what we must do in order to make our lives quite a bit easier against this boss. And I have to say, you can probably tell that this boss is based upon gaining back your powers and using them in order to defeat the boss. And I feel like this is an incredible boss fight because it's based upon using all of your powers in order to persevere, which I think is just a really, really incredible design for a boss. And I feel like it's something that Zelda really hasn't done well ever. It's just a really cool aspect of this boss fight that I really, really have to give props to the creators of Okami for creating, because it's just a really fantastic final boss fight. Anyway, I'm taking actually quite a bit of damage here just because I have a lot of stuff to say. Luckily, I still have all these holy bones from when we took on the Devil Gates. And of course, we may only use Rejuvenation. We do not have any other powers available to us, so we are very, very limited here in the Day of Darkness. So we have to wail on this guy pretty much only with our divine weaponry, and eventually he should relinquish another one of our powers to us. And wowee, this attack is fast and powerful, and oh boy. I do have to say, out of all of the required boss fights in this game, this is probably the most difficult one by far. Absolutely by far, although I suppose since it is a final boss, it definitely lives up to the hype. Anyway, once we've wailed on him a little bit more, he will relinquish another one of our powers. This one being Power Slash, given to us by the god Tachigami. Anyway, with this, we may now use Power Slash against this guy, and I recommend doing it as much as you can because he can dish out quite a bit of damage, as you can see, and Power Slash is a really good way to counteract a lot of things. I was trying to use Power Slash there, but it looks like it took it as Rejuvenation because this portion of the battlefield has actually been destroyed. So let's just put that back together really quickly. And let's see if we can get out of dodge really quick right here. And let's just try and jump out of the way of this. I'll be honest, that is a very, very difficult attack to avoid, and I haven't really practiced this boss fight. I kind of just wanted to go in and see what would happen. A very genuine fight against the Emperor of Eternal Darkness. Anyway, let's just wail on him a little bit more right here. And eventually, once we deal enough damage to this guy, he should relinquish yet another one of our powers. This is going to be Green Sprout, granted to us by the Triumvirate of Hanagami Flora Gods, those being Sakigami, Hasugami, and Tsutagami. And with that, we may now bloom this guy, and the core of Yami will indeed emerge, and we are allowed to wail on it as much as we can. This is a very odd core right here, because it's implied that this whatever it is that is inside of Yami is actually Yami himself, and the rest of it is just a sort of existence thing that he uses to control. Very, very odd thematic choices. Anyway, this second form of Yami, as you might guess, is based on a very basic form of evil as well, the action of burning things, lighting things on fire. A form of evil, a form of destruction. Very, very thematically fitting. And as you can see, he's got this crazy snake attack that he's going to be using against you, and you're going to be taking a lot of damage from this thing because it is very, very difficult to avoid. I just recommend keeping out of harm's way as much as you can. Anyway, I'm going to continue wailing on him right here. Unfortunately, I don't think Power Slash is going to do anything. And as you can see, he actually is going to separate into these platforms, and you can navigate up these platforms in order to gain access to the core, and you can wail on him a little bit more. Very, very interesting idea here, but you'll definitely want to get out before he reforms back together because it might be a little bit risky. Anyway, he's going to relinquish our fourth power right here, this being the power of Cherry Bomb, granted to us by Bakugami. We later gain the ability to summon multiple Cherry Bombs at once, which is definitely very cool. Anyway, when he is stunned, we may now use our Cherry Bomb attack on him, and what it will do, if we can actually get close enough, it will force him into this snake pattern, and you may gain access to the core one more time. Do quite a bit of damage to this guy. Definitely want to wail on him as much as you can. Unfortunately, the Cherry Bombs will actually fall through these platforms, so you can't use Cherry Bomb to actually attack him, simply to stun him. Anyway, with that, he will relinquish yet another one of our abilities, this being Water Spout, granted to us by the brush god Nuregami. With it, we may put out his crazy fiery attacks, and as you can see, there are water sources in the battlefield for us to make use of. So we may stun him by putting water on him, and then pulling out another Cherry Bomb, getting as close to him as we can, and forcing him back into this snake-like pattern. So we may hop up and attack even more, and I definitely recommend wailing on this guy as much as you can with your most powerful abilities. Alright, anyway, we want to get out of dodge there really quickly, and it looks like he's about ready to relinquish another power. This will be the Crescent power granted us by the brush god Yumigami. Now, this brings me to something really cool about this boss fight. Certain brush powers will actually have special effects only in this boss fight. If you use Crescent Moon, for example, a gigantic apparition of Nagi will come out of the sky and cleave Yami clean in two, giving you an opening to attack. There are other powers that do this. I don't plan on showing every single one intentionally in this fight, just because there's quite a few. I highly encourage experimentation with your powers as you get them, to see if you can get something interesting to happen. Unfortunately, I believe these special abilities will only trigger a certain number of times, so they will not always work, because they do give you a pretty serious advantage. So keep in mind, Crescent might not always summon Nagi. It might have only a few actual uses before it will give up on you. Anyway, as you go through this fight, you might notice these climbing sequences are going to get a little bit tougher, so you definitely want to be really, really careful getting up here, because it might not be as easy as you'd like it to be going forward. And it looks like he's not actually capable of relinquishing another power yet, which is unfortunate, so we're just going to have to wail on this guy as much as we can. Does Power Slash do anything? It does. Sort of. Anyway, going to want to wail on him a little bit more, and then he's going to split up into his platforming phase again, and we can jump right on up here and start wailing on him even more, and hopefully pretty soon he will be relinquishing another one of the abilities that we have lost. Alrighty, I'm expecting the fire to come back at any moment, but apparently not. Alright, we're just going to wail on him a bit more, and oh boy, we have the big snake attack of death coming out at us. That is a devastating attack right there, and you want to avoid that at all, if possible. Alright, you gonna light up on fire again? Yes, you are. Gonna be using Water Spout again, and we can just go right on up to him and Cherry Bomb him open again. Nice. And it looks like we got a pretty good shot at the core right here. We'll just wail on it a little bit more, and that should wrap up the next phase of this fight. Alrighty, with that we will be beginning Phase 3. The third phase is also based on a very basic form of evil. As we can tell, he will open up into a slot machine, which is a really interesting, I believe, allurance to the action of gambling. Not necessarily gambling like with money, but I feel like it's more an allurance of gambling with the lives of humans. Very, very interesting thematic choice right here. Anyway, he is going to have some attacks for you from the lottery, so you're going to want to be really careful and attack back at him as much as you can, and eventually he should be able to relinquish another power of yours. What you really, really want to do is you want to get those 3 crystals to go off. The first time you do that, it's going to be pretty merciful on you, and it will automatically relinquish your next power, this one being Gale Storm. Gale Storm was granted to us by the brush god Kazegami, and we can use it to blow out fire instead of simply putting out fire with our water powers. So we may use it in that fashion, and I definitely recommend you do so. Anyway, it looks like he's probably going to be forcing fire on us when we stop him. Yes, indeed. Alright, gotta avoid some of these ice attacks best we can. Ooh, wow. That is definitely a very intensive attack. And when the fire goes out, we can use our wind power to neutralize it, which is definitely very nice. Alright, this phase of the boss fight usually takes a very long time just because the randomness of stopping this lottery thing, so you definitely have to have the patience to deal with this fight in particular. Alright, I'm going to send that back. And it looks like we got some lightning coming out here, so we're definitely going to have to watch out for that. We're going to slash that back as much as we can, keep out of the way of that lightning cloud. Can we use wind to blow that away? We can. Very nice. Alright, and we got the mirrors again, and with that he will fall down and relinquish another power. This one is going to be the power of Inferno, granted to us by the brush god Moegami. This allows us control of the element of fire, and that will allow us to deal with this ice very, very easily, which I definitely recommend you do as quickly as possible because the ice attack is particularly devastating. Alright, with that it looks like he's got ice dead set on us. Let's see what we can do here, and we actually got the mirrors. Nice. With that, he will fall down once again, and he will relinquish a very important power for this phase. He is going to relinquish Veil of Mist, granted to us by the brush god Kasugami. This is my personal favorite power, and as you might imagine, with fast-moving parts on this boss, you might imagine that this is going to be a very, very important power. When we use it, you might notice that an apparition of Queen Himiko will emerge and will give you health, which is really, really cool. Alright, we need to stop those mirrors as soon as we can. Unfortunately, I missed that one a little bit, although its effect isn't necessarily negative, so I'm going to take it. Alright, with that, we have exposed the core. So we are free to attack it, preferably with Power Slash right here. So we're going to go all in on that as much as we can. And after that, he's going to drop a whole ton of ink pots because we were able to stop the lottery in that manner, which is definitely very good. Alright, let's activate Veil of Mist again. Gotta be pretty quick on this one. Unfortunately, I screwed that up, so we're just going to stop that one right there on the ink pot. That will give us another chance to attack the core, so we're going to be moving in on that with Power Slash as much as we can. Definitely recommend grabbing Power Slash 3 for this fight because it will do quite a bit more damage. And with that, he will drop a whole ton of health and a whole ton of ink pots, so you can definitely manipulate this phase of the fight in particular to your advantage. Anyway, we're going to slow things down right here, stop that on the mirror, stop that on the mirror, and slow things down a little bit more, and stop that on the mirror. That will stun him pretty significantly, and the core will actually fall out of the bottom here to be attacked, and that should conclude this phase of the fight, and we will be moving into phase 4, which I personally feel is the most difficult of the phases just because of his method of attacking. As you can see, this is some form of robot, which is interesting, and I feel like this phase of the boss fight is based on the basic evil of Ow. Based on the very basic evils of technology, like using technology to do evil things, to destroy, various things like that. So this guy's got some power to him, and I think he's one of the most difficult phases of any boss fight in this game because he takes a lot of damage, he has a lot of attacks, and he's pretty crazy. You might notice there are treasure chests up on these pillars in this room now. Keep that in mind for when we recover a later power in this phase of the fight. Anyway, with that, we have exposed the core a little bit right here, so we're going to want to wail on him a little bit, and hopefully he will be relinquishing yet another one of our abilities back to us. Alright, how many Power Slashes is this guy going to take? Wow, he took quite a few Power Slashes right there. Anyway, with that, it looks like he's still not quite ready to relinquish one of our powers. Alright, that attack right there you definitely want to keep out of the way of as best you can. Slash him a little bit, and with that, he will be relinquishing the Catwalk ability. Catwalk is the ability granted to us by the brush god Kabegami, and it allows us to use statues of said god to climb walls. This is one of the very few brush powers that really doesn't have any sort of battle application. What you can do in this fight is you can actually use these catwalk statues in order to navigate all the way up to the top of these pillars, and you can use them to gain access to treasure, although the camera isn't really too terribly conducive to these things, and it's actually pretty difficult to get over to them, and I never really use this because they drop things like Holy Bones and Exorcism Slips, which I already have quite a few of, so I don't think I'm going to be actually making use of Catwalk, although I will actually draw it right there just so I can say I've used every single brush power in this fight at some point, because that's the entire point. And yeah, as you can see, this guy has got some kick to him, so I definitely recommend bringing Holy Bones just because all of his attacks are very difficult to avoid and they do a lot of damage. Anyway, going to be slashing these missiles back at them the best we can, and you might notice those missiles are actually designed very similarly to the clay soldiers found in the past, which is a really, really interesting detail. Anyway, I'm not sure if this laser attack right here actually counts as a fire attack. I think it more so counts as a light elemental attack. Anyway, gonna wail on him a little bit more with our Power Slash. Power Slash is probably one of the most usable techniques in the entire game just because it's so good for attacking pretty much anything, even at a distance, so I recommend using it quite a bit. Unfortunately, we cannot get in close to attack him because we were just too far away, and you really do want to keep as far away as you can from this guy just because of all these crazy things he can pull out at you. Alright, gonna send all that stuff back, and it looks like he is ready to relinquish yet another power. This is the Thunderstorm Brush technique granted to us by the brush god Gekigami, who is another one of my favorite gods just because he's a tiger and an archer at the same time, and that's pretty amazing. Anyway, you might imagine what this is going to be used for. This enemy can actually reform its arms into the form of the Nine Strike, similar to when we were battling against Ninetales, and you can use that to stun him immediately and get in and wail on him basically as much as you want until he returns back to his android robot thing. Alrighty, so hopefully he will be doing that again, although he's pretty smart. He usually doesn't do it right away. He usually moves in for a pretty powerful attack first. But yes, once you get the Thunderstorm Brush technique back, this boss fight instantly becomes a lot easier because as soon as he attempts that attack of any kind, he automatically relinquishes his core. And speaking of relinquishing things, he is about to relinquish Blizzard. This is the power granted to us by Itegami and is the most recent power that we obtained on our adventure. Now you might be thinking, sweet, we have all the powers back. We have all of our powers, there's no way he could possibly fell us now. I want you to think back about all of our powers. I have indeed mentioned every single brush god that we have met on our adventure. But have we retrieved all of the brush techniques? Count them back. How many have we earned back? Is it 13? Is there one we're forgetting? Keep that thought very close to you as we proceed ever further in this phase of the fight. Anyway, ice I don't think really does anything in this phase, unfortunately. As you can see, there's actually a source of ice right here, but I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what you're supposed to do with it. Although it is obviously available to you if you want to use it. And using ice definitely would be a very smart thing, especially just because using all of your powers in this fight is once again one of the things that makes it really, really great. Although again, I'm really not sure what purpose ice actually fulfills in this fight. Ooh boy, I want to keep out of the way of that laser attack. He's getting a lot more aggressive right here. I'd really like him to use the Nine Strike ability again just to get that stun on him, and it looks like we were actually able to. I'm not sure how I did that, but that's definitely very nice. Gonna slash him, gonna get Veil of Mist out there just to give me a little more time. Gonna wail on him a bit more. Another Veil of Mist. Smack him as hard as we can with our Divine Instrument Solar Flare, the weapon wielded by Shiranui himself, and we should be able to wrap up this boss fight within one more cycle, which I'm definitely really excited for. The ending of this game is something truly phenomenal that I feel like everyone needs to behold at some point in their lives. Alrighty. Yami's fourth form is almost down, and it looks like he is calling up the Nine Strike ability immediately, which is very nice. So we can move in with our Veil of Mist right here and deal the final blows to the Emperor of Eternal Darkness. Thank you all for joining me on this incredible journey.